Mickey Rourke didn't just walk into Hollywood, he stormed in like a hurricane with no warning. There had been rebels before him, sure, but Rourke brought a brand of chaos that couldn't be scripted. When he showed up in Diner, audiences didn't see an actor. They saw someone raw, unpredictable, electric. In the 80s, he wasn't rising, he was erupting. One casting director whispered that he might be the next Brando. But then, like smoke slipping through fingers, he vanished. Not slowly, suddenly, without explanation. And in a town obsessed with comebacks, what followed was something else entirely. He didn't fade because the roles dried up. He walked away from the fame, the parties, the red carpets. He once said the whole thing felt like being trapped in a dream that belonged to someone else. Rourke wasn't chasing lights. He was chasing something real, something that hurt back. He found it in boxing rings and bare-knuckle nights that didn't care who you were on screen. That's when Hollywood lost him. The world thought it was a phase. It wasn't. It was the beginning of the disappearance of one of the most enigmatic stars Hollywood had ever seen. When Mickey Rourke exploded onto the screen in the early 80s, it felt like lightning striking celluloid. Rumblefish wasn't just a movie. It was a warning shot. Critics drew lines from Dean and Brando to Rourke, but there was something darker humming beneath the surface. Directors called "cut," and the set would fall into a strange silence, like they'd seen something they shouldn't have. Francis Ford Coppola didn't mince words. "Mickey doesn't act," he said. "He just lives." That terrified people. The cinematographer remembered needing fewer lights for his scenes. "He carried his own shadow," he said, "like a storm cloud." By the time the Pope of Greenwich Village hit sets, something was already fracturing. Word got around that Rourke would vanish for days, rewrite entire scenes at midnight, or lock himself in his trailer until his fists were bruised and no one dared to ask why. Publicists called it method acting. Crew members whispered something else. "You looked in his eyes," one recalled, "and you knew he wasn't pretending." Hollywood likes intensity, but only when it plays by the rules. Rourke didn't even acknowledge the rules existed. He wasn't playing a part. He was the part, and that terrified the system designed to control it. While his peers were schmoozing studio heads, Mickey could be found nursing a drink in a forgotten jazz dive, or trading blows in a rundown gym where no one cared who you were in the movies. Kim Basinger, his co-star in 9½ Weeks, once said, "Other actors want to be famous." Mickey looked like he was trying to survive it. During Angel Heart, things took a strange turn. A scene with Lisa Bonet rattled the entire crew, not because of what it showed, but because of how real it felt. Director Alan Parker later admitted he considered scrapping the take. "I wasn't afraid of Mickey hurting her," he said. "I was afraid he'd forgotten it wasn't real." That confusion, between the man and the mask, became the thing people whispered about behind closed doors. He started rejecting scripts everyone else would have killed for. Rain Man, Beverly Hills Cop, The Untouchables. All tossed aside like yesterday's newspaper. "You want me to play a cop?" he reportedly scoffed. "I'd rather chew nails." The studio heads called him difficult. Agents labeled him unstable. But beneath it all, Mickey saw something most didn't. The machinery. The sellout. "They want your soul," he once told Rolling Stone, "but dressed up pretty so it looks like art." He started flexing his hands during interviews like he was gearing up for a fight no one else saw coming. When he signed onto Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, the title alone should have sounded the alarm. After a producer suggested softening the script for broader appeal, Rourke flung the pages against the wall and walked out in leather. "I'm done," he said, and just like that, he was gone. Not with a press release, not with a farewell tour, just gone. In the years that followed, he became a ghost drifting through rumor. One night in a Vegas gym, another time in a bar in Miami where the lights never came on. A boxer here, a drifter there. But the version of Mickey Rourke that had once lit up movie screens with fire and fury? He was nowhere to be found. Not even in memory. And that's where the mystery deepens. Not in why he left, but in what pulled him away. It wasn't rejection. It wasn't failure. It was purpose. Something that existed far beyond studio lots and limousines. He once said that the scariest thing in Hollywood isn't losing fame. It's realizing how empty it was to begin with. He didn't fall from grace. He walked away from a throne made of lies. By the time the industry started asking where he'd gone, it was too late. They weren't just missing an actor, they were missing a storm that refused to be bottled. And somewhere, in a sweat-drenched gym or a silent alley at 4 a.m., Mickey Rourke was still fighting something that no camera could ever capture. When the director of Johnny Handsome dared to ask for another take, Mickey Rourke didn't just refuse. He walked. No hesitation, no debate. "I already gave it to you," he snapped. "If you didn't get it, that's your problem." But that outburst wasn't about ego. Not really. There was something brewing under the surface, something deeper. Mickey wasn't throwing tantrums for show. He was searching for something Hollywood no longer offered. Truth, unfiltered and raw. He vanished for weeks, slipping into places where his name meant nothing. Not clinics or luxury retreats, but places that reeked of stale beer and old sweat. Places where the walls talked louder than the people inside. Dive bars, basement gyms, abandoned lots. He found kinship with men who knew pain by name, who carried their past in their eyes. These weren't actors. They were fighters, survivors, strangers who didn't care about 9.5 weeks or the Cannes red carpet. To them, he wasn't Mickey Rourke. He was just another man running toward, or away from, something invisible. Then, with no warning, he let it all go. Phones rang and went unanswered. Messages piled up. And in the very town that once hailed him as the next De Niro, murmurs grew. He's done. He's lost it. Classic crash and burn. But they misunderstood. Mickey wasn't crashing. He was peeling back the layers to find whatever was left beneath the stardust. And it shattered him. The most magnetic star of the 80s? Gone without a goodbye. No press release. No exploring other creative paths statement. He simply faded into the fog of the early 90s. Hollywood didn't mourn. Hollywood replaced. But then, rumors started circulating like campfire tales. A blurred photo from Miami. A bar fight whisper in Moscow. Was it Mickey? Or just the echo of who he used to be? His reps had no clue. Friends had stopped asking. It was as if the spotlight itself had shut him out, and he had agreed. What followed was stranger than fiction. The rare few who got close during those lost years spoke of a man haunted. A man who laughed at the question, "Why'd you quit acting?" with a half smile and a whisper, "I didn't quit, I got left behind." And maybe that was the truth. Or maybe it was just the part he was willing to share. One ex-cop, working security at a rundown gym in Brooklyn, recalled a figure pounding the heavy bag night after night, in silence. Never took off his shades, didn't talk, moved like a man chasing ghosts. Months passed before he realized who it was. And by then, Mickey was gone again. By the mid-90s, the whispers had turned to gasps. Mickey Rourke was gearing up for professional boxing. That wasn't just a comeback. It was a risk most wouldn't dare. Behind-the-scenes accounts hinted that underground fights had already taken a brutal toll. But it wasn't just his body that was bruised. It was his soul. And the most unnerving part? He had let it happen. Voluntarily. The reasons would come later, piece by piece. For now, the legend of the man who traded glitz for grit only grew. And then, a face no one recognized stepped onto the red carpet in 2005. The venue was buzzing. It was the Sin City premiere. That name on the guest list, Mickey Rourke, sent shivers through the crowd. But the man standing there was unrecognizable. The cheekbones that once launched magazine covers were gone. The nose, misshapen. The lips, different. The press tried to reconcile the past with the present, and just when everyone thought he was done, The Wrestler happened. With that film, everything changed. Critics didn't just applaud. They were stunned. He was Randy the Ram Robinson, broken, battered, beautiful in his defeat. And when he stepped up to accept his Golden Globe, even the most jaded stars leaned in. His face told a different story now, one written in scar tissue and second chances. This wasn't just another actor riding a comeback wave. This was a resurrection. Then came Iron Man 2. The world saw him again, armored in villainy, with a face that didn't quite move like before. Plastic, some whispered. A mask, others said. Rumors exploded. Was it an accident? A fight gone wrong? Online forums overflowed with theories. One doctor claimed he saw signs of several botched surgeries. But those close to Mickey told a quieter story. During makeup sessions, he'd flinch when touched. In stunt rehearsals, he'd instinctively shield his face. Years of punishment had rewired his reflexes. Even his movement had changed. Director Darren Aronofsky noticed it right away. Mickey didn't just act differently. He was different. His silence carried weight. His stillness spoke volumes. And in a 2009 Letterman interview, when the host cautiously brought up his changed appearance, Mickey stared, then said, "One day, the mirror doesn't reflect who you are inside anymore, so you change it." It lasted just a few seconds, but it hit like a thunderclap. Was this transformation intentional? A rejection of his old self? The truth flickered in moments like that, and then vanished. Over the years, he offered fragments of explanation. He mentioned boxing injuries, shrugged off the surgeries, but nothing ever fully added up. Beneath the new face, there was still the same glint in his eyes. The pain, the passion, the stubborn refusal to conform. He hadn't vanished. He had been morphing, evolving, and only he knew the real cost. The whispers in underground circles had long hinted at this reckoning. And soon, the world would discover the truth behind the transformation, and the brutal path that led him back. In dimly lit gym basements and behind closed Hollywood doors, a whispered legend began to rise. A story of a star who traded red carpets for black eyes and silver screens for sweat-stained rings. At first, people thought it was another aging actor chasing a new role, maybe prepping for a gritty comeback. But what emerged was far from theatrical. This was raw. This was Mickey Rourke, not method acting, but almost method unraveling. The whispers grew darker. He didn't just train like a boxer. He fought like a man chasing something beyond redemption. Some claimed he wasn't dodging punches at all. He was absorbing them, like he needed them. Trainers talked, sparring partners flinched. One of them said Rourke would take a hit and smile, not because he was tough, but because it hurt enough to remind him he was alive. These weren't training rounds, they were battles with himself. A corner man once said, "Most guys protect themselves." Rourke invited the pain in. His body began telling the story long before he did. Stiff movements, a raspier voice, a haunted silence behind his eyes. He'd brush it off with a dry, "Took a hit." But the truth couldn't be hidden in makeup. Every camera close-up captured a different kind of scar. Then came the VHS tape, the grainy footage that showed him trading brutal punches with a former Golden Gloves champ. No one knew who leaked it, but the message was loud. Mickey wasn't pretending. He came back again and again, not to win, but to endure, to be punished. Witnesses said it was less about boxing and more about guilt, a ritual to burn away sins no one else understood. While Hollywood tried to spin it as research for a role that never came, those sweaty backroom gyms told a different tale. They saw a man whose hands trembled, who stared too long into mirrors as if searching for a soul that had long since disappeared. But there was another figure, a ghost in the ring whose name wasn't spoken out loud. A real fighter. A man who didn't believe in pulling punches just because his opponent had once shared the screen with De Niro. Word was it was James Toney, a fighter whose gloves had silenced careers. In those sessions, Rourke wasn't protected. Toney broke him down, hit after hit. No faking, no mercy. But Mickey came back. Again, and again, and again. The face we saw? It wasn't aging. It was battle-worn, reconstructed, fragile and proud at once. What happened off-camera was far more complex than any role he played. The surgeries, the silences, the vacant stares between takes, all of it hinted at a deeper truth. Mickey wasn't trying to fit back in. He was trying to remember who he'd been before Hollywood carved him into something else. Was it madness, or the bravest act in a business built on lies? When we break down Mickey Rourke's lifestyle, the numbers speak volumes. At his peak, he lived like royalty. Ferrari 599 GTB, a Bentley Continental, and a vintage Harley-Davidson sat in his garage. His wrist often sported a Rolex Daytona or a Panerai Luminor, bold statements of status. Real estate included a Spanish-style villa in Beverly Hills, rumored at $5 million, and an apartment in Manhattan's West Village. His private jet usage, especially during the 2000s comeback, hinted at residual star power. He dabbled in clothing lines and had equity in niche fragrance deals. His insurance policies were comprehensive, covering injuries, career interruptions, and even personal liability from his boxing detours. But none of it, not even the wealth, shielded him from what he truly sought: authenticity. And maybe that's the lesson here. Mickey Rourke never played by the rules of Hollywood. He risked everything for something real. His fortune, his face, his fame. He traded them all. Not recklessly, but intentionally. His story isn't a cautionary tale about excess. It's about defiance. A man who rejected image and embraced pain because that's the only truth he had left. If there's a takeaway, it's this. In an industry obsessed with perfection, sometimes the most powerful thing you can be is broken, and honest about it. Was Mickey's path a slow implosion, or a final, furious scream for freedom? Either way, he made sure no one would forget. His face became the battlefield, and his legacy, the aftermath. And that's the wild, emotional, and jaw-dropping journey of Mickey Rourke. Hollywood's golden boy who traded red carpets for real punches and screen glory for something far more personal. From his early days of smoldering charisma in 9.5 weeks, to sweat-soaked gym floors and underground wars with legends like James Toney, Rourke's story is anything but typical. It's messy, raw, and unforgettable. He wore every bruise, scar, and regret like a badge. Some stars burn out, others explode on impact. Mickey? He broke the mirror and walked away with the truth.